Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. I'm really pleased to welcome back to the show, Kerry Benjoe. Hello, Kerry.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you. And I just want to remind the audience that Kerry is a writer, a journalist. She's a mother, a grandmother, an Indian residential school expert, and the list goes on. It really does. So thank you. I just was curious what's happening right now in your life. Any new projects or?
Well, we relaunched, I remember I mentioned it, but we relaunched my news organization. We are now EFN Media. And so we have a new website, a new publication, a new app. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening right now.
Okay, so what is that about?
Um, we are we're a news organization. We were a monthly newspaper, but we transitioned because of, costs of producing a monthly paper. We transitioned into a new format. We're doing a quarterly magazine instead of a monthly magazine to cut down costs, publication costs. And we've partnered with Pattison Media to, we have a completely new website, new partnership where we will be able to access a lot of their platforms, and they'll be able to push out a lot of our content on their different news sites. And so that just means that there's more exposure for stories that we are producing at Eagle Feather News, and we tell primarily Indigenous stories from Indigenous communities.
Yeah, which is really, really great. I hear a lot more right now about a lot of Indigenous organizations or whatever posting positive things about the Indigenous people, right?
Yeah, and that's what we've always based Eagle Feather on. We are I guess we have our own niche when it comes to storytelling.
Right.
We let mainstream media handle everything else, and we focus on the stories that aren't being told. And I don't put any malice onto mainstream media because there simply is not enough journalists to cover all the stories needed to be told. So we're doing our best to fit that, that need, because I'm finding that there's a lot more news organizations that want to tell our stories, but they don't have the access. And so that's where we come in.
Right. Yeah. So as somebody who's a European descent, and I'm sure it'd be easier for you, for instance, to talk to or get information or stories from other First Nations people as opposed to myself.
Yeah, definitely. I do have that connection within the communities, and I am a longtime journalist. So I worked in mainstream media for almost 20 years, and now I'm in community news. So
right. So this magazine, is it like online or does it come in paper form or both?
the magazine, it's a quarterly publication. I have one on the table over there, but I could show you, but no, it goes out to our subscribers. We produce 7,000 copies. It goes to all the First Nation communities in Saskatchewan. It's 74 First Nations. And the Métis locals that have signed up for a subscription, they get a bundle. And anybody who's interested. The Saskatoon School Board, I know, has a subscription. There's different school boards that subscribe to us. I currently have 250 copies. And so right now I'm selling subscriptions for those magazines, and hopefully be able to cover our publication costs just primarily through subscriptions.
Okay. So if people wanted to subscribe, how would they get a hold of it? Or you or the information?
Oh, they could reach me directly at my email address, kerrybenjoe.efn
Okay.
at gmail.com, or just kerry@eaglefeathernews.com.
Okay. So it's nice and simple, really, for people.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, I know that you were a former reporter at Regina Leader Post, correct?
And CBC.
And that's correct. As storyteller at CBC.
Yeah.
So is this the same type of idea?
Yeah, basically the storyteller position sort of developed out of the role I played at the leader post.
Mhm.
I did a lot of community outreach. I did a lot of Indigenous stories from the communities to build those bridges between um, my news organization at the time, Leader Post, and the Indigenous communities. So when I left the Leader Post, I went and got my master's degree. And once I finished, I was sort of recruited by CBC. And the idea was to continue to do that type of storytelling, stories that happen organically, stories from the communities, stories that there are no news releases, stories I find and promote. I remember one of my big stories that one of the main big stories I did at CBC was traditional face tattoos. I was walking around, I was noticing there was a lot more ladies that had traditional face tattoos. And so I did a story and I talked to several different women about their tattoos and why they did it. And um, that was a story that just went national, like there was so much interest in it. And I continue to see so much stories and so much more people, more Indigenous women opting to get their traditional face tattoos and, reclaiming that part of their identity that was outlawed, basically, due to colonization. And so, yeah, that's sort of like how CBC envisioned me, is to just, tell stories from the community. And so Eagle Feather has always done that. And so when the publisher decided he was going to retire, I left CBC and I took on the role of, co-owner and editor of Eagle Feather News, where I get to tell those stories again.
Right. Now, when you talk about tattoos, are you talking about the lines they have down like the chin?
Yeah,
No, they have a special meaning, right?
yeah. Well, all the women I talked to had different reasons as to why they did it
Mhm.
and what their tattoos meant to them.
Okay.
But there are tattoos. There's temple tattoos where you see ladies with lines. There's forehead tattoos for very specific ceremonial reasons.
Mhm.
There are tattoos, chin tattoos.
Right.
And so all these ladies had reasons as to why they chose and why they chose to get these markings and what these markings meant to them.
Right. I
And so
know.
my story was just to kind of explain that to people who may have been wondering
Yes.
why there were these markings. But if I'm sure my story's still on CBC somewhere. If you ever Google Kerry Benjoe and face tattoos, it'll probably come up.
Okay, because that would be a good one to find out why though that particular person had that particular tattoo, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm. Everybody has a connection to their tattoos, as do all the ladies who choose to, embrace their traditional face tattoos and, just um, be so public about it, because you can't hide those.
Yeah.
It's very visible. It's very, you know, you see a lot of Inuit ladies that
Yeah.
also get the tattoos, and their tattoos have special meanings and reasons why they get them. And there's different, the lines and everything. It has very specific meanings to each of those ladies.
Right. Yeah, I've watched the show Living Below Zero, I think it's called. And that's in some of those northern communities like I can't
Mhm.
remember the name, but I've seen quite a few of it's always the females, right?
Mm, there's men who get face tattoos as well,
Okay.
but my story was just focusing on ladies because it sort of went against um cultural norms, like what you see, um that it became popularized with rap. There was a lot of men who got very visible face tattoos, and
Okay.
you know it became more commonplace. And then I started to see more Indigenous women, more older Indigenous women
Yeah.
opting to, you know, get the face tattoos. And I was curious, just walking around, I was curious. And so I thought that would be a really cool story. And I talked to all these ladies,
Mhm.
and they talked about, the interaction that they get they received and they continue to receive because of their tattoos. Some of them, get those standoffish looks, like people get scared of them because they have face tattoos. But their tattoos are completely different from, you know, um, other type of,
Yes, yeah.
sometimes negative um, tattoos, like the society sees them as negative type of tattoos, like from gangs and
Yeah.
things like that. The ladies, there is such a traditional connection to those face tattoos. And so I talked to different ladies about why they chose to get them
Mhm.
and sort of the interaction that they receive. Some of it starts conversations. Some of it's just, people are just very aggressive. They don't like them. They like, why did you do that? Strangers coming up to women and telling them, like, why'd you do that? And demanding some sort of answer.
Right.
And there's one lady I talked to, and she said she told one man that just kind of come up to her at a grocery store and demanded why she had face tattoos and what they meant. And she was like, what I do with my face is my own business. What
Yeah.
I choose to share is my own business. You don't have a right to know why I have done what I done. And she's like, just go away, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
and that's how it is. If you approach somebody respectfully and ask, the same lady said other people had come in, they'd ask. And just out of curiosity, and she'd share the story as to why she did it and why
Mm.
the it meant so much to her and the ceremonial impact and the meaning behind her tattoos.
Mhm.
So when they come with respect, she responds in respect. If they come with her towards her in anger, she responds with the same energy. And I think that's very powerful. And she says that she feels very proud, very protective, and very um, connected to her ancestors because of, she just decided to reclaim her identity and say, this is me, you know
Right.
and to put it out there so publicly, like, you can wear a ribbon skirt, yes, and anybody can wear a ribbon skirt, but the ladies that choose to reclaim something that
Mhm.
was taken away from them um, more than a century ago,
Right.
I think there's something very symbolic about it, something very powerful about that.
Absolutely. When you talk about that man, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking, like, what right does he have anyway? To approach anybody in that manner. Like, okay, maybe he doesn't agree with it, then keep your mouth. Like, I just want to
Mhm.
think, why do you have to react to him? Why does he have to react in that manner? Like, anyway,
Because it's pushing away, it's challenging the cultural norms,
yeah,
anybody who sees anything different, they don't like it, and they try to um squash it,
but
which is
there's not.
probably how we lost our traditional tattooing practices back in the day.
Right. Yeah. You know what? There might be lots of things I don't like, but it's none of my business unless somebody asks me my opinion. That might be a different matter, you know? But for me to just go up to somebody and voice my negative opinion, I just think I don't have that right, period. That's the way
Hmm.
I see it. That's the way I look at it anyway. Um,
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I'd like to go back to from the first interview, you were in the residential schools, right?
Hmm.
And how old were you at the time, if you could remind me, please?
I went there for high school because back when I went in the late 80s, early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
there was no high school options on reserve. So it was either just stop your education at grade 8 or leave your community. And you get bused into an urban setting. My nearest urban setting was Regina, or go to a residential school. Those were basically the only options. If you wanted to continue, if you wanted to get high school education, you had to leave home.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's got to be pretty tough, just the adjustment of being with your community, with your family, and then not being there.
Yeah, it's very harsh. It is a very stark contrast.
Right.
Um, you know, being woken up every day, the sound of my dad singing powwow, my mom making breakfast, the smell of porridge and bacon and eggs, a warm breakfast,
Yeah,
it was a very gentle way to be woken up. Um,
nice.
stark contrast is sleeping in a dorm and, 7 o'clock, soon as I think it was 6:37, we got woken up
Mm,
and they just flipped on the lights and there was like a dorm is a bunch of beds in a very large room side by side.
right.
We had a bed and a dresser. That was our possessions. And like we had no walls. It was just all of us together. And yeah, they just came in, turned on the lights and said, all right, time to get up. And it was very loud. And we had to, race to get a shower and, line up to get our breakfast. And, it was a very um, institutionalized,
Yeah,
sterilized setting. And right after that, our schedule was very regimented. We had breakfast, we had chores, um, we went to, every Monday we had to go to I guess the church inside the school, and they told us about the week's event or whatever.
hmm,
Um, and then our classes, lunch, chores, class, after school was, we got a few minutes, we had our snack, we had a bit of time, and then it was study. Right after study hall, it was supper, chores, bit of free time, bed, and that was it.
right.
Well, that one day when I was trying to figure out how much actual free time we had on our own to do our own thing, it was probably about maybe 2.5 hours a day,
Wow.
like our own
Yeah.
when it wasn't scheduled. Yeah.
Mm. Did you develop any strong friendships with any of the other girls there?
Yeah, I did. That's sort of one of the good things about the
Mm,
school was everybody there um was all going through the same thing,
right.
so we bonded, we had friendships, and I have a long time friendship with one of my friends, and holidays I would go home with her, and
Mm,
so I spent a lot of time with her family,
right.
and eventually her family became my family, and I still call her mother my other mom. And so there are those kind of connections that develop, and even now there's a sense of camaraderie
Yeah.
between former students. If we know somebody went to Labret, like the schedule never ever changed, so everybody knew about chores, everybody knew about study time, um, and going uptown, town passes, because we weren't even allowed to leave the school without permission. We had a certain day we were allowed to go uptown to go and buy, like, go to the corner store, get some candy or whatever.
Right.
We weren't allowed to leave the
Mm,
gates of the school. And so, like, there was hills and everything there. We never explored that. We were just in our own little world there. We never interacted with anybody from the town.
right.
Um, and so we just kind of grew up in that place with each other and made our own, formed our own bonds.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, even now, like there's kids that were there when in grade 2, when I was grade 12, they know me because,
Mm,
little kids remember the seniors or whatever.
yes.
And, you know, it's just that, oh, you went to Labrat? Yeah, I was there. And they tell their years, oh, okay. And then it's that automatic connection. It's like we we share a history, even though we didn't may not have interacted, we share that history.
Yes.
And so that still exists.
Right. What kind of chores did you do?
Oh, we have to clean up everything. Every day um we had to mop and sweep the dorms, clean the bathrooms, empty all the garbage, um, sweep the stairways, mop the stairways. Every single part of the school was cleaned every single day
Oh,
by us. And when we had major cleanups too, we had a mini major cleanup on Sundays and a major cleanup before holidays where we cleaned everything. We like washed all the walls, all the baseboards, all the pipes. It
right.
was just, yeah, we did We did a lot of work.
Free labor.
Oh, yeah, and it was serving, it was dishes, it was pots, it was everything that needed to be anything that needed to be cleaned. We
Right.
did it.
And how many years were you there?
I was there 3.
3 years, right? So when you left there, now I know we've talked about this. When you left there, did you go back to your community?
No, because I was one of those students because my dad had died and my mom never learned to drive.
Right,
And so when I went to Labrat, I very rarely went home.
right, okay,
And those initial months, it was really, really hard. It was really, really lonely. I remember sometimes when all the students, because some of the students would leave on weekends. It was an option. We were allowed to leave on weekends. And there were some weekends where everybody left and everybody from my dorm was gone. And I'd be the only student there sitting in my
right,
dorm all weekend. And it was really lonely. It
yeah,
was incredibly um, isolating. And I remember there was times looking out my window and just, because we weren't allowed to even leave the school grounds, being so um, disconnected.
mm-hmm,
And we didn't have cell phones at the time. The only option was calling collect, to
yes,
my house or whatever.
yes,
And we were only allowed the phone certain times. And so that I couldn't just pick up the phone and call my mom or talk to whoever. So
yeah,
I was there by myself all the time. And I learned to be by myself. And and that changed how I sort of was able to function in society.
mm-hmm,
um, I shut off a lot of that emotional connection and that connection to my community because I grew up on the reserve I lived on with my mom.
right, yeah,
Um, and then once I was done my elementary, went to high school. That was it. I just stayed there. I didn't come home for holidays. I didn't,
yeah,
interact with anybody on the reserve anymore. I just stayed away and got my education and I worked really, really hard to get the best possible grades because one of my goals was to go to university. My dad had wanted his kids to get a college education, and when he died, um, that's one of the things I wanted to do was to get that college education. Even though he wouldn't be there, I
right,
wanted to do that.
yeah,
And so I worked really hard. Um, I got the best grades, got into university, and I just kept going. And I met my husband um, while I was in university.
mm-hmm.
Um,
See,
around that time, I was like 18, 19 when I met him.
okay,
And so, yeah, I never went home. I went straight from
right,
school.
mm-hmm,
Like even when I left that grade 12 summer, I didn't even go home. I went to my friends and the one I told you, my
yeah,
other family, I
yes,
went live with them for the summer.
okay,
And then when I came back, I went to university. And so I found a place in the city and I went to university. Um, and it was total culture shock, from going from a strict regimented lifestyle to suddenly,
mm-hmm,
no one telling me anything. And I had to look after bills. And there was, I knew a little bit about financial literacy and how to manage stuff. It was just not having that anyone, it was just me.
yeah,
And then being in that big school where, I grew up being surrounded by other Indigenous people. I went to, I was on reserve. We got sick. We went to the Indian hospital, went elementary school all through days. My day school years was on reserve, went to high school. It was all Indigenous. And then I went to university and I was with everybody. And it was
right,
just sort of a culture shock for me,
mm,
never ever interacting with anybody outside my community. And so um, I failed that first year. Well, I didn't fail. I left. I went back to Manitoba
okay,
and I stayed there. And it was my adopted mom who said, Kerry, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, go to university, go get your education. The reserve will always be here.
Hmm.
And I think I just needed somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, went to university, and that following summer, I I joined the I did the army training,
Oh,
met my husband,
right.
and then we went to university together, and that was it. It was just I
Must be
was
like an alien world at first, right?
yeah, it's like, mind you, I was really young.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I was only 18, and I was expected to know how to function in a society I had never been a part of.
right,
But I'm lucky I did have um, those skills of independence that they taught me at residential school.
hmm,
Depending on myself, learning to find my own way, and just
right,
being kind of um, confident in my own abilities, and and my own. I was always smart. That's the one thing I had going for me, is I was always book smart.
right,
That was my one skill. So transferred easily into university, and I did end up um, convocating the first in my family, and yeah, and I eventually found myself in I I wanted to go to university, pursue it, and get my law degree, only because I thought, that would be something that would have made my dad proud. And so I worked towards that. But life happens. I ended up adopting four of my sister's kids, three nieces and a nephew.
okay.
And this was in addition to my two, and I had one on the way.
Well,
And I fell into journalism. And my first article I ever published was in Eagle Feather News.
right,
And I realized, that it combined the skills I learned in university.
hmm,
I took Indigenous Studies. I got a BA in Indigenous Studies and a BA in English,
right,
only because uh, one of my professors, who was a lawyer, said if I wanted to go to law school,
hmm,
I needed to learn how to write and know how to research. He said, so any kind of type of history classes, he said, they'll be good. And so I took Indigenous Studies, and lo and behold, research and being a good writer transferred easily into being a journalist. And I just found that, it just fit, um, it filled a void that
yeah, yeah,
in myself. And I realized that I love telling stories, and I love writing, and obviously I found my passion through that. And so although I gave up on that dream of becoming a lawyer, I did give my three nieces and nephew a stable home life.
hmm,
Um, and they're all off, and they're doing well. And I found my passion of storytelling.
right. That's really great. I think we're just about out of time, so it's a good spot to end it, where when you talk about finding your passion, which just really a good motivator for other people. I
Mm-hmm.
like that very much. So we're going to end it there. As I said, and to the audience, you've been listening to Kerry Benjoe. She's on Facebook if you want to look at her, or look up CBC. Put her name in. There's my notice coming up from Zoom here. The notice that. So yeah, look her up on CBC, find out some of her stories. I think you'll be really pleased with them and enjoy them. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching the show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out. Oh, thank you, Kerry. That was so great. Oh my gosh. I just love, I love all of that. I love your journey. It just fascinates me. This is going to air this Monday coming up. Okay.
Okay.
And once it does, I'll send you the link once again. All right.
Mhm.
And as always, you're always welcome back to the show anytime. So thanks again for
I thought
sharing.
we were going to talk about my domestic violence survival journey.
We were. We were, oh my goodness, okay, I'm gonna make a note here. Because I sometimes forget who I'm gonna talk to and about what. Okay, so domestic violence.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna put this down, violence, and
yeah, because I lost my leg due to domestic violence. I'm an amputee.
right. Wow, okay. So we'll have you on, I'm sorry. How about we set this up, well, I'll end this and then I'll message you and we'll pick a date for that topic, okay? Which will probably be in August. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, great. All right. Sorry, I'd forgotten all about it. Thank you. Thanks again. Bye-bye for
But it
now.
was a good conversation nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good for other people that listen to, whether you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, you know? So get it. I'm just sorry, I'm looking up, reading what it's telling me that get off or they're gonna shut me down.
Okay.
Right. Okay, I'll message you in a few minutes. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.